What's up, guys? I'm LQ. This is the LQ Review. Thank you so much for being here at my YouTube channel. This is where I talk about all the geeky, nerdy stuff I love to talk about. Movies, video games, television shows, comic books. If it's nerdy, if it's geeky, I love talking about it here. And right now, I want to talk about the new Disney Plus show called Prop Culture. As a Disney fan and as a movie fan, prop culture is something that was right up my alley. So this is a show, it's 8 episodes. Each episode is about a half an hour. And each episode, they focus on a movie. And in this case, it's a Disney movie. But there's a prop collector, and each episode, he's tracking down props from the movies. And oftentimes, he will bring in actors from the movie and go show them the props that they interacted with or wore or whatever, however many years ago. It's a very entertaining concept for a movie fan. There were 8 episodes, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to rank the episodes from my least favorite to my favorite. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what each episode kind of went over, and just the enjoyment level that I got out of each episode, because they were vastly different. And honestly, the vast difference is largely based on your own nostalgia for these movies. You know, your favorite episode will probably be a lot different than my favorite episode, because a show like this inherently is built on the nostalgia of the watcher, the person who's the audience. And if you are into, you know, if for instance, number 8 for me, the least enjoyable episode for me was the Muppet movie. I didn't really ever watch the Muppet movie when I was a kid. You know, I didn't watch the Muppet movie until I was older. So the fact that I don't have a huge amount of nostalgia for it means that it's low on my list. If you're somebody who grew up watching the Muppet movie and it was one of your favorite movies as a kid, it's probably going to be your number 1. So something like this, it's built on nostalgia. The list is going to be largely dictated by that nostalgia. So let's talk about it. Number 8 is the Muppet movie. And I just didn't really get a lot out of this one. Like I said, I never watched the Muppet movie. I didn't watch it until I was an adult. So the props that he kind of went after in the Muppet movie, I didn't care. I wasn't very familiar with them. So number 8 is the Muppet movie. Number 7, though. Number 7 is Tron. The episode on Tron was really fantastic, especially when they brought the Tron actor back. They were able to track down some of the jumpsuits that they wore in Tron when they were in the video game world. And that was really cool to see just how ridiculous those jumpsuits looked. I mean, they looked ridiculous in the movie, but when you're looking at them outside the context of the movie, they're ridiculous. And they told stories about how you know, when they were on set, they actually had to put on like bathrobes or something like that because these jumpsuits showed everything. So in the spirit of modesty, they had to wear robes over these jumpsuits. So yeah, the Tron episode was interesting. Tron's another movie I didn't watch till I was an adult. I adore Tron Legacy. I don't know why that movie didn't find an audience, because I adore it. And it wasn't until after I watched Tron Legacy that I went back and watched Tron. And Tron, for me, it just didn't hold up. It's very dated, and it just feels a little silly. Now, if you're somebody who watched it when you were a kid and you grew up with Tron, it probably holds up much better for you. But for me, it just didn't hold up as a movie because I didn't have any kind of emotional attachment or nostalgia for it. But it was a fun episode to watch because it was really silly. I mean, the whole concept of it was really silly. And seeing the way that these actors and movie historians kind of laughed at some of it, it was fun to watch. So number 7 is Tron. Number 6 is A Nightmare Before Christmas. Nightmare Before Christmas came out in, I think, 1993. I was a teenager when it came out. So again, it's another movie. I was in that I'm too cool for cartoons phase when Nightmare on Elm Street came out. I was a teenager. So when it came out, I was like, I didn't want to watch it because it was just a stupid kids movie. I didn't discover it until it had a re-release in theaters. I think in 07, 08. And I went to see it with my wife, who had seen it. She had seen it, and I was enamored by it. I loved it. I thought it was really, really good. And so that being said, even though Nightmare on Elm Street is probably one of my, I can't even say it's one of my favorite movies on this list. There's some really good movies on this list. But even though I really love Nightmare on Elm Street, it's not super high on the list because, again, the nostalgia factor isn't there, even though I really liked it. So in this one, they track down some of the claymation characters, some of the sets. They track down the hill, the swirly hill, and we learned a little bit about the construction of that. How one hill was 2 hills in one. How they had to cover one of the original hills with snow. It was really interesting. It was an interesting episode. I enjoyed it, but it's not that high on my list. Again, simply because of the nostalgia factor. Number 5 is, honestly, it's a newer movie. So is number 4, actually. But number 5 is Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. And honestly, I like Nightmare on Elm Street as a movie better than this one. Why is this one higher then? Well, they got the Pevensey kids back. 3 of the 4 anyways. And they got to interact with a lot of the props, the weapons, the costumes. We got to see the kids who are now adults who played in this movie, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. We got to see them revisit the movie through the props. And that was something that I genuinely enjoyed, was seeing these kids in awe and memories come flowing back and seeing them share some of their memories about the filming of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. That was all really entertaining to watch. So that's why Chronicles of Narnia probably gets, a little bit ahead of Nightmare on Elm Street as far as this episode is concerned. Number 4. Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl. Again, a newer movie, but it was very, very entertaining. The way that they described the sword making process, how they had a real blacksmith who made swords and the way they were actually made. They actually had a sword that they modeled a lot of the pirate swords after. That was actually a real pirate sword that predated the United States. He even said, this sword that you're holding in your hand is older than the United States of America. So that was cool. The attention to detail that went into these movies was astounding to me. They visited the ride, and the treasure chest at the end of the ride in Disneyland was the treasure chest from the movie, The Curse of the Black Pearl, that held the Aztec gold. Just so much of the props in this, they were going for authenticity. They went over some miniatures of the ships, but these miniatures were massive. They were massive. The attention to detail that went into making the ships, especially the Black Pearl, was amazing. They designed the Black Pearl like a character, where the sails were all tattered and torn and everything. They wanted it to look like faces, like you were constantly being watched on the ship. That was great. That's insight into a movie that I love that I didn't know before. So that's the kind of thing I like. So yeah, the Pirates of the Caribbean episode was really well done. That's my number 4. My number 3 is probably a lot of people's number 1. But my number 3 is Mary Poppins. And it was a really well done episode. But in Mary Poppins, they track down the carpet bag. They try to track down the umbrella. The carousel horses. These are some props that they're going after in this movie that are just iconic Disney props. Mary Poppins is such an iconic movie, so seeing these, it's a flood of childhood memories that come back. And they were actually able to get the girl, the lady who played the little girl in Mary Poppins. She's an older lady now, and they were able to give her or show her the costume, the dress that she wore as a kid in Mary Poppins. I mean, this was, out of all the episodes, this one was the one that kind of resonated the most emotionally with me, because so much time has passed since Mary Poppins. Walt Disney himself worked on this movie. So when we start talking about some of these props, we're talking about props that maybe Walt Disney himself had a role in creating. So yeah, I mean, it's my number 3, but I can understand how it'd be a lot of people's number 1, because it was just a really emotionally sound episode. So that's my number 3, Mary Poppins. Number two, one of my childhood movies that I've got a lot of nostalgia for, and that's Who Framed Roger Rabbit. So yeah, there was some props that he was looking for in this movie. The blinds that Roger crashed through, the stand-ins that they used for Roger in the movie. You know, there's definitely some big props that they went after, but they were able to interview Kathleen Turner, which was a hoot. That was a riot. She's still incredibly funny, and they were able to interview the guy that voiced Roger Rabbit. And by golly, I forget his name. Fleischer, I think. But the piece that really resonated with me was they interviewed Christopher Lloyd, and they showed Christopher Lloyd. First of all, they went and got a shave and a haircut with Christopher Lloyd, which was great. And then they showed Christopher Lloyd the Judge Doom costume, and that was very nostalgic and definitely brought back some very powerful childhood memories of watching the movie. And I can tell that Judge Doom means a lot to Christopher Lloyd. What will Christopher Lloyd be remembered for, you know, one day? Will he be remembered more for Doc Brown or Judge Doom? I don't know. That's a fascinating question. But you can tell that Judge Doom means a lot to Christopher Lloyd. And I loved seeing him interact with that costume again. So that's my number two. But my number one is Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. Honey, I Shrunk the Kids was a foundational movie for me as a kid. I went to see it in theaters, and it's one of those movies that's responsible for me being a movie fan. I talk about those foundational movies all the time. Honey, I Shrunk the Kids is one of them. And in this one, they show some of the stop motion insects. You know, they show Auntie, they show the scorpion, and they go over how they did some of these stop motion scenes. But really the centerpiece of this episode was the fact that they were trying to restore the original shrinking device. And that was kind of a theme that ran through the episode, was getting the getting the rights and then being able to do the restoration project on the original shrinking machine. Probably the moment that resonated with me the most, though, in this episode was having Rick Moranis back. They brought Rick Moranis back, interviewed him about this project, what this project was like for him, and it was, you know, the fact that Rick Moranis stepped away from acting so long ago, and we haven't seen him play in a lot, you know, other than do some voice work. He hasn't really been in anything in decades. So seeing him back, it was just phenomenal. It was like a piece of my childhood was sitting there talking to me again. A hero from my childhood was sitting there talking to me again. And I'm so excited about the fact that he is coming out of retirement, and he is going to play in a Honey, I Shrunk the Kids sequel called Shrunk with Josh Gad. I can't wait for that. Let's get this coronavirus done so they can start filming on Shrunk, because I can't wait to see it. But yeah, the Honey, I Shrunk the Kids episode was very nostalgic for me, and it brought back a lot of memories. So, those are the 8 episodes in Prop Culture. I rank them by the order that I like them, 8-1, with Honey, I Shrunk the Kids being my favorite episode. What was your favorite episodes of Prop Culture? Let me know in the comments down below. Did you enjoy the show as a whole? Or do you even intend to watch it? Let me know what you think. Make sure you subscribe to my channel. And as always, thank you for being here at the LQ Review, where we talk about all the geeky, nerdy stuff we love to talk about. Until next time, we'll see you guys later.